My family. Guilt tripped me into paying the mortgage for years, then evicted me for my cousin. So I took legal action and won everything. I've always been the responsible one in my family, the guy who fixes everything. When the roof leaked, I patched it. When my sister got into debt, I covered her bills. When Mom cried about being all alone after Dad passed, I was the one who moved back home, giving up the apartment I'd finally saved for. Responsibility felt like my second skin, until I realized it was also my leash. We weren't a wealthy family. Dad worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, and Mom, well, she did her best, but she always leaned on others to help her through tough times. My cousin Ethan, on the other hand, was the golden boy, the charmer, the one everyone bragged about at family dinners. He was the kind of guy who could crash a car and somehow convince everyone the tree was at fault. After Dad's sudden heart attack, things got heavy fast. Mom would sit at the kitchen table, hands trembling around a mug of cold tea, whispering, "Your father would have wanted you to take care of us." And I did. I took care of everything, canceled my gym membership, worked overtime, handled the insurance paperwork. Every small act of help became another thread tying me to that house. She started calling me the backbone of the family. Relatives echoed it like it was a badge of honor. "You're such a good son," they'd say. I smiled, but inside it started to feel like a trap disguised as praise. I told myself I was holding the family together, doing what any decent man would do. But sometimes, late at night, I'd hear Mom on the phone laughing with Ethan, saying things like, "He doesn't need to know everything." Back then, I thought she meant the funeral costs. I didn't realize they were already tightening the noose. It started with a single envelope on the counter, thin, white, stamped with the bank's logo. Mom's eyes were puffy when I came home that night. She said, "They're threatening to take the house, honey. Your father worked his whole life for this place. We can't lose it." I remember the guilt that hit me like a punch. That house wasn't just wood and walls. It was my childhood. Every crack in the paint had a memory attached. The sound of Dad's laughter echoing down the hallway, the smell of his old leather chair. I couldn't bear to see it sold off to strangers. Mom said she'd handle it, but the math didn't add up. I sat down with her at the kitchen table, going through the bills. The numbers were brutal. "If we miss another month," she whispered, "they'll start foreclosure." Then she looked at me with those tearful eyes I'd seen 1,000 times before. "Your dad always said you were the one who'd take care of us." And just like that, I folded. I told her I'd take over the mortgage, just until she gets back on her feet. I even set up automatic payments directly from my account. She hugged me like I'd saved her life. "You're such a blessing, sweetheart," she said. "I don't know what I'd do without you." At first, I felt proud. Every month I'd watch the payment go through and think, this is what good sons do. But slowly, I started noticing things that didn't make sense. New furniture in the living room, spa receipts on the counter, Ethan's car parked in the driveway for days at a time. When I asked about it, she smiled and said, "Don't worry, baby. I just needed something to lift my spirits." And for a while, I believed her, until the next envelope showed up. For a while, it felt like I was the family hero. Every Sunday dinner turned into a performance of gratitude. My uncles would raise their glasses and toast to the man keeping the family home alive. My mother would beam proudly, patting my shoulder like I was her prized accomplishment. Even Ethan would smirk and say, "Not all heroes wear capes," but behind the praise, something started to shift. The more I gave, the less they listened. My opinions about finances, repairs, even simple things like repainting the porch, none of it mattered. Decisions were made without me. I'd come home and find new things, curtains, furniture, a brand new TV, and when I asked, Mom would say, "Oh, Ethan helped me pick it out. He's got such good taste." Ethan had suddenly become a regular fixture in the house. He'd stroll in like he owned the place, tracking mud through the hallway, opening the fridge, calling my mom Auntie in that fake sweet voice he used when he wanted something. Every time I mentioned my discomfort, Mom brushed it off. "He's just been going through a rough patch," she'd say. "You should be supportive, like family." I tried, I really did. But something about Ethan's constant smirk and the way he avoided eye contact when bills were mentioned, it gnawed at me. Meanwhile, I noticed more late fees popping up on the bank notifications. When I asked Mom if she was sending in the payments, she got defensive. "Do you think I'm stupid? Of course I'm paying it. Stop treating me like a child." I backed off, like always, because when it came to her tears, I folded every time. Still, that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to faint laughter drifting from the living room, Mom and Ethan whispering about something I didn't need to worry about. I told myself it was nothing, but deep down, I knew something was rotting beneath the surface. The day everything started unraveling was a Tuesday. Ordinary, quiet, unremarkable. I came home early from work, groceries in hand, and found a letter half-tucked under a stack of magazines on the counter. It was another bank notice. The words, "Payment overdue," jumped out like a siren. My stomach dropped. I'd been paying every month automatically, never missing a date. I called out, "Mom, what's this?" She appeared from the living room, face pale, voice trembling. "Oh, that? It must be a mistake. I probably forgot to process something online." But my payments were automatic. There was nothing for her to process. I pressed, "Mom, are you sure everything's being paid?" Her lips quivered. "Don't start with your interrogation again. You're always so suspicious." "I'm just asking where the money's going." She slammed her mug down, tears springing to her eyes. "Your father would be ashamed of how you talk to me." That line always hit like a dart. I felt the guilt immediately, that old reflex of backing down. "You're right," I muttered. "I didn't mean it like that." From behind her, Ethan appeared, arms crossed. "Maybe if you stopped stressing her out, she wouldn't forget stuff. She's grieving, man. Have some respect." Grieving. It had been 2 years, but I bit my tongue. That night, the house felt different. Colder somehow. Mom wouldn't speak to me, slamming doors and sighing loud enough for me to hear. Ethan lingered, around, checking in on her, while giving me those smug little looks that made my fists tighten. I tried to brush it off. I told myself families fight and things would settle. But as I stared at the unpaid notice before bed, something inside me twisted. For the first time, I wondered if I was being lied to. It happened by accident. I wasn't snooping, at least not at first. Mom had asked me to grab her phone charger from her room while she was in the shower. As I bent to pick it up, a drawer stuck halfway open, and inside I saw a thick folder with the house's address scribbled across it. Something told me not to touch it, but curiosity, or maybe fear, won. Inside were bank letters, tax forms, and a property document. My father's name was still on it, but next to it, in newer ink, was something that made my pulse slam against my chest. Ethan's name. I froze. There was no mention of mine, no indication that I'd been paying the mortgage for 2 years. Just Mom and Ethan, joint ownership. The air left my lungs. When she came out of the bathroom, I was still standing there, document trembling in my hands. "What is this?" I asked. Her face changed instantly, from surprise to panic, then to anger. "Why are you going through my things? You added Ethan to the deed. Why?" "It's just a temporary arrangement," she snapped. "The lawyer said it's easier this way. You don't understand how these things work." "Temporary," I said, voice shaking. "I've been paying for this house. My name should be on that paper." Ethan, of course, chose that moment to walk in, holding a grocery bag and wearing his usual smirk. "Wow, dude, snooping through your mom's stuff now? That's low, even for you." I wanted to hit him. Instead, I turned to Mom, desperate for any sign she cared. "Just tell me the truth. Am I paying for a house that isn't even mine?" She looked away. Her silence was my answer. That night, I sat in my room, staring at my bank app. Every transfer, every sacrifice, every dollar gone. And all I could think was, they were never planning to keep me here. After that night, it felt like I was living in a house made of lies. Every conversation turned into a trap. When I tried to talk to Mom calmly, she'd twist everything back on me. "You're paranoid," she'd sigh, shaking her head like I was a disappointed child. "All this stress is because you overthink. You always have." I started keeping to myself. Quiet mornings, late nights, trying to avoid conflict. But Ethan made that impossible. He was everywhere, eating my food, using my tools, leaving his shoes by the door like he owned the place. One morning, I found him sitting in Dad's old chair, scrolling through his phone. I snapped, "Don't sit there, that was Dad's." He looked up lazily. "Relax, man. It's just a chair. You really gotta let go of the past." The way he said it, like I was the one disrespecting my father, made my blood boil. But when I told Mom, she defended him. "He's helping me with things you wouldn't understand. You should be grateful he's around." Grateful. For what? For stealing my place in my own home? They started cutting me out of family talks. Group chats formed without me. I'd overhear them whispering in the kitchen, the conversation ending the second I walked in. One night I heard Ethan's voice say, "He's losing it. You need to protect yourself before he does something stupid." The next morning, Mom wouldn't even meet my eyes. "I think you need to relax, honey." "Maybe take some time away from the house," she murmured. That's when it hit me. This wasn't confusion or poor communication. It was strategy. They were making me the unstable one, rewriting reality until I doubted my own sanity. So I stopped arguing. I smiled, nodded, and played along. But deep down, I started documenting everything. Every payment, every receipt, every message. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd learn their rules. It was a Friday evening when I came home to find a single sheet of paper taped to the front door. At first, I thought it was another bill or delivery notice. But when I got closer, my heart stopped. Notice to vacate, 30 days. I just stood there, staring, the world blurring around the edges. My keys nearly slipped from my hand. I walked inside, stormed, and found Mom and Ethan sitting at the kitchen table like they were waiting for me. Mom looked calm, almost rehearsed. Ethan leaned back, arms crossed, a smug glint in his eyes. "Mom, what the hell is this?" I asked, holding up the paper. She sighed dramatically. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Ethan and I decided it's time you move out. You're clearly not happy here. Move out?" I laughed, though it came out shaky. "I've been paying the mortgage for 2 years. This house is half mine." Ethan cut in before she could respond. "Actually, legally it's not. You were just helping out, like family." That phrase, like family, felt like poison. I looked at Mom, desperate for any sign that this was some sick misunderstanding. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. "You've been so angry lately," she said softly. "It's for your own good. Maybe getting some distance will help you calm down." Calm down. She was evicting me, and she wanted me to be calm. I packed that night in silence. Every photo frame, every sound of a closing drawer felt like betrayal echoing through the walls. As I loaded the last box into my car, I turned back and saw Ethan closing the front door behind me, locking it. That sound burned into my memory. The house I paid for, my father's house, was now his. And for the first time, I realized I had no home, no family, and nothing left to lose. I spent the next few nights crashing on my friend Nate's couch, surrounded by cardboard boxes that smelled like dust and shame. Every morning I woke up disoriented, half expecting to hear Mom calling me for breakfast. But then I'd remember. The same voice that used to beg me for help had just thrown me out like garbage. I stopped eating properly, stopped answering calls. There was this sick heaviness in my chest, part anger, part heartbreak. Nate tried to cheer me up, saying, "You did the right thing, man. They used you." But all I could think about was how I'd handed over years of my life, my savings, my peace. And for what? A few days later, Nate walked into the living room holding his phone. "Hey, you should see this." He showed me a social media post. Ethan and my mom smiling in front of the house. The caption read, "Family finally stable again. Hard work pays off." Something in me snapped. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into my bank portal. Every payment I'd made was sitting there, black and white. Mortgage, utilities, repairs, all under my name. My hands trembled, not from sadness anymore, but from rage. I started digging deeper. Emails, text threads, receipts. I realized I'd been more than just a helper. Legally, I had been the primary payer for everything tied to that property. Nate leaned over my shoulder. "You know, this isn't just wrong. This is illegal." I hesitated. "It's family." He gave me a look I'll never forget. "Family doesn't evict you from the house you paid for." That night, for the first time, I stopped blaming myself. The guilt faded, replaced by something sharper, clarity. If they wanted to steal everything I built, I was done playing nice. It was time to fight back, with evidence, not emotion. The next morning, I booked a consultation with a property lawyer. I walked into that office carrying 2 years' worth of documents, each one a receipt of my stupidity and my leverage. The lawyer, a middle-aged woman named Carla, listened quietly as I told her everything. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "They may have taken your home, but from what you've shown me, they committed unjust enrichment." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means they benefited from your money without legal right. And depending on how these payments were structured, you could have a claim to the property itself." For the first time in months, I felt air filling my lungs again. Carla helped me draft a formal claim. Every transfer, every screenshot, every email went into a file. When the legal notice was served, I imagined Ethan's smug grin finally faltering. Mom called that night, her tone trembling between anger and fear. "How could you do this to your own family?" She cried. I kept my voice steady. "I didn't. You did." Within days, the calls from relatives started. My aunt left voicemails saying, "You're tearing the family apart." My uncle texted, "It's just money, son. Don't drag your mother through court." But this time their words didn't hit me. For the first time, guilt didn't win. I was done being their wallet and scapegoat. Ethan tried to intimidate me, sent a long, self-righteous message about how family loyalty should matter more than property. I replied with 2 words, "See you there." Every document I handed to Carla felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, one I'd buried under guilt and obligation. They thought I'd roll over. They thought I'd keep playing the obedient son, but they forgot something vital. When you've already lost everything, you stop being afraid, and that made me dangerous. Courtrooms have a smell, like paper, dust, and quiet judgment. I sat there in a cheap suit, my hands sweating through my notes while my mother sat across the aisle beside Ethan. She wouldn't even look at me. He, of course, smiled, that same smirk I'd seen 1,000 times. Carla leaned toward me. "Stay calm," she whispered. "We have the truth." That's more powerful than their act. The judge began reading through the filings, and that's when everything started to unravel. Carla presented bank statements showing every mortgage payment. My account, my name, my money. Then she dropped the bomb, the renovation expenses. Thousands of dollars I'd paid for home maintenance had been rerouted through an account in Ethan's name. My mother's face went white. Ethan tried to interject, stammering, "That's not how it happened. She said it was—" But the judge cut him off. "You'll have your turn." Then came the emails. Carla displayed printouts of messages between Ethan and my mother, plans to restructure ownership and liquidate the property for profit once he's out. I felt my chest tighten as I read my own mother's words. He's too naive to ever question us. Let him keep paying. The courtroom went dead silent. My ears rang like I was underwater. Mom finally looked at me, her eyes wide, trembling, not with guilt, but fear. Ethan tried to recover, blaming her, saying, "She told me it was all in the family." But the damage was done. Carla rested her hand on my arm. "This is enough," she whispered. "We've shown everything." The judge looked from me to them and said quietly, "This isn't a family dispute. This is fraud." In that moment, the years of guilt, The endless nights of self-doubt, they all dissolved into something new. Justice wasn't a dream anymore. It was happening, right in front of them. The final hearing felt almost surreal. I sat there numb, barely breathing, as the judge read through his ruling. Every sentence felt like the slow dismantling of everything my mother and Ethan had built on my back. The court finds substantial evidence of fraudulent misrepresentation and unjust enrichment, he said. Effective immediately, 50% of the property shall be transferred into the claimant's name. Additionally, the respondents are ordered to pay restitution for emotional and financial damages. Ethan's jaw literally dropped. My mother let out a small, broken gasp, half disbelief, half outrage. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Outside the courthouse, the family descended like vultures. My aunt rushed up, whispering harshly, "How could you humiliate your own mother in public?" I stared at her. She humiliated herself the moment she betrayed her son. Ethan tried to approach me in the parking lot, still fuming. "You think you've won? You ruined her!" I turned to him, calm for the first time in months. "No, Ethan. She ruined herself when she handed my father's home to a parasite." He lunged forward, but a bailiff stepped between us. I didn't flinch. That's when I realized he couldn't hurt me anymore. None of them could. A week later, I received the official property documents. My name, was finally printed where it should have been all along. Carla called to congratulate me, but I barely spoke. Winning didn't feel like victory. It felt like mourning, burying whatever family I thought I had. Mom sent one last message. "I hope you're happy now. You've destroyed this family." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "No. Mom, I just stopped letting you destroy me." When I hit send, the weight that had lived in my chest for years finally loosened. But freedom, I was about to learn, doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like silence. It's been almost a year since the court ruling, and sometimes I still wake up expecting to hear Mom in the kitchen, humming the way she used to when I was a kid. But when I open my eyes, all I see are bare walls, sunlight spilling across a place that's finally mine. My new home isn't fancy. It's smaller, quieter, humbler, but every inch of it feels earned. The mortgage is in my name alone. The first payment receipt hangs framed by the front door, right beside the court judgment. A reminder that the same paper they used to take everything from me became the proof that set me free. I started therapy a few months back. My therapist asked me what family means to me now. I told her, "It's not who shares your blood, it's who shares your peace." She smiled, and for once, I did too. Sometimes I drive past the old house. The windows are closed, the garden overgrown. I heard Ethan moved out after the court seized part of his inheritance to pay my settlement. Mom still lives there, but she's isolated now. The same relatives who once praised her now whisper behind her back. I don't gloat. I just feel nothing. The kind of nothing that comes after surviving a storm. Nate came over last weekend to help me move in a new sofa. He looked around and said, "Feels different, huh?" "Yeah," I told him, running my hand over the wall. For the first time, this place isn't built on guilt. When he left, I sat alone, listening to the quiet. No shouting. No manipulation. Just peace. I thought I was saving a family when I moved back home. I thought being responsible meant never saying no. But what I really saved was myself. And as I locked the door behind me, I realized something simple but powerful. Sometimes you have to lose your family's house to finally build your own home.